and the other 4 to the Lions and Vikings, who were in a first-place game in the final game of the regular season. So it's not like those 5 were bad losses by any means. And he kind of got blown out in that first Detroit game and in that first Minnesota game, despite what the final score says. But according to the final score, you didn't really get blown out in any of those games. The Bears game on Sunday, despite Malik Willis playing a majority of it, was still inexcusable and a really bad loss. So for those guys to be irritated and lead a charge of saying, hey, we are better than this, we've got to wake the bleep up, I get it. So we'll see, right? I mean, this is still a very talented team, a very young and talented team. So by no means am I going to use today's conversation to say the Packers have no shot on Sunday, because I think that'd be naive and I think that'd be obtuse, right? It is very obvious this team is good enough to beat the Eagles. The Eagles are the better team, but if you play a really good game on Sunday and have a rusty Jalen Hurts look like a rusty Jalen Hurts who can make some mistakes, you've got yourself a ball game. And that's all you can ask for. You know, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I remember about this time last year when we were previewing the Cowboys game in Wild Card Weekend. We viewed it as house money, right? Because the team was ahead of schedule. They kind of figured things out at the end of the year. And all of a sudden they were in the playoffs. They were going on the road as an underdog. You know, house money. This isn't that, but we'll get into that here in a few minutes. So Packers-Eagles is the game Sunday. The question I find myself asking, and I think a lot of people are asking themselves this question this week, is where do I feel better about the Packers than I do about the Eagles? And I'm struggling to come up with answers. Right? What is the Packers' biggest advantage on Sunday? I don't think it's the quarterback. You can make a case, but it's not like Love has been brilliant this year. He's been good, but he hasn't been MVP level like maybe some expected before the season. Hurts is coming off that injury, so you could probably make a case Jordan Love's probably got a little bit of a lead on Hurts just given the situation. Running back, no. Saquon's the best in the league, despite how good Jacobs has been, right? Just a little bit behind. And these aren't huge margins either. That's the nice part. Defensively, you probably have a little bit more. But the Packers' biggest advantage Sunday, I don't know what it is. And that's where I go, okay, they're going to have to play a really good game, close to perfect game on Sunday to win. But the margin of error in the NFL is so very thin. Right, if Jalen Hurts throws one interception and the Packers play turnover-free football, that could be the differentiator. Right, that could be the difference maker. Defensively, I don't really feel better about the Packers in any area than I do the Eagles, though. I think their pass rush is better. I think their linebackers are better. By the way, shout out Zach Bond, Wisconsin alum, friend of show Zach Bond, chosen to the Pro Bowl. He was on episode I don't know, Hunter, what would you say? That was like episode 7 of Mr. Irrelevant when he was still playing for the Saints last year.
It might have even been sooner than that. It could have been like episode 3 or something, or 4.
Yeah, friend of show, Zach Bond. Yeah. He's had a terrific year in Philadelphia. And I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue with this. He's probably the best linebacker on the field on Sunday, which is cool. Go Badgers, but wish he was on the other team playing in Sunday's game. Defensive backs. The Eagles took like all of my draft crushes in the draft this year, Hunter. And I know you and I both get into draft nerdy mode and we have our guys. But my guys in this draft were Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean not so much, but Quinyon Mitchell was my favorite. And as he fell, I was like, oh my God, the Packers are going to have a shot at him. And then they didn't take him ultimately. And he has had an awesome rookie year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defensive backfield's really good. So I just don't feel like there is a clear-cut advantage for the Packers on Sunday, which is tough. Nevaeh chimes in on the ESPN Milwaukee YouTube chat. Place kicker. Yeah. I mean, McManus has been great, but if that's your biggest advantage, you got problems. Hunter, go ahead.
I think it might be Matt LaFleur relaxes a little bit and can outplay call Sirianni. Like, that
Sure.
might be their I think it's their best chance, too. Because Nick Sirianni can do the same thing that LaFleur does and get too emotional and lose himself in a game. So if Matt LaFleur can stay calm and get them frustrated early, that might be their best advantage.
I think that's a really good point by you. I would take the head coach. Despite Sirianni making it to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, I think I'd still take LaFleur, just given the amount of times he's done it and what he's been able to do the last 2 years, right? Look at what he's been able to do with Malik Willis this year, except on Sunday. And look how he's been able to take this youngest roster in the NFL to the playoffs back-to-back years, despite having a lot of adversity, right? Love getting hurt this year. An incredibly good division, right? Going 1-5 in NFC North play, but still finding a way into the playoffs and beating every team outside of your division except Philly, who you play on Sunday. So yeah, he's done a great job, and he's a really good head coach. But still, I'm really worried about what we saw this past Sunday. And look, I've seen people suggest that LaFleur is going to be on the hot seat after they lose on Sunday. Not for this season, but next season he's going to be on the hot seat. I think that's criminal. I think that is just crazy talk. There's absolutely no shot Matt LaFleur is on the hot seat. He's a really good head coach, but he does need to take a freaking breath, to your point, because sometimes he gets a little ahead of his skis, and that's what we saw Sunday against the Bears when he called that timeout way too early and left way too much time on the clock for Chicago to operate. But if he takes a breath and he calms himself down a little bit, I think he could have a masterclass on Sunday. We saw it last year against your Dallas Cowboys, Hunter. He called a masterclass in that game, and he got some help from the defense. And that game turned out to just be an absolute drubbing. Now, I don't anticipate that on Sunday because the Eagles are not the Cowboys. No offense. And, you know, if LaFleur can dial some good stuff up, even without guys like Christian Watson and Jair Alexander, who's obviously not going to play on defense, if he can dial some things up offensively, they're going to have a chance. I just, 4.5 seems like the right number because I could see the Eagles winning by a field goal. I don't know if I can see them winning by a touchdown. I think this one's going to be close no matter what. And if it's not, I think it's going to be the Packers win big. I don't see the Eagles running away with this one if they do win, which is likely, but I don't see them winning in a boat race. That's just not a scenario in my mind.
I mean, it's rare that a playoff game ever does, and I'm glad that you brought up the fact that people are talking about, like, when should Matt LaFleur, if they do lose this game on Sunday, like, do you start having the conversations? I saw it once, and I can't remember who tweeted it, but they brought up after the Packers lost to the Bears of, like, do we have to start having the conversation that maybe Matt LaFleur is another, like, Marty Schottenheimer or another Chargers head coach, Norv Turner, of they are great offensive minds, awesome at the X's and O's, just cannot get a team over the top, even with all the talent like Schottenheimer and Turner had in San Diego at the time. And is Matt LaFleur just another one of those guys where maybe he just can't get the team over the top, but he's great at the X's and O's? And I think that's where the conversation should at least be if they don't win on Sunday of like, hey, is this the type of guy? And then if it's another falling out early in the playoffs, you start having the conversation of a hot seat for him.
I don't see it happening. I think it's way too early. This is not Jeff Fisher, right? This is not a guy who's going 500 every year. This is a guy who's winning playoff games and getting you there. If we're gonna have the conversation, tell me who's gonna do a better job, right? And I'm not picking on you. I'm just pointing it out, right? When you look at the Dallas situation going on right now with Mike McCarthy, I've used the same exact scenario, right? Tell me who's going to come in and do a better job. If the Cowboys can go get, I don't know, Ben Johnson, are you completely convinced he can do a better job than Mike McCarthy has? I don't know. He's a first-time head coach. Obviously, he's a genius offensive mind and a great play caller, Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions OC. But can he do a better job? So to even start the conversation on LaFleur, and obviously he wouldn't get fired after this season, but that would essentially be, hey, the seat's warm. If they miss the playoffs next year, maybe that's when you pull the trigger. I think it's ultimately way too early. Way too early. Because the guy has proven how good he can be and the way he can elevate. But yeah, he's had moments, especially this year. You're going, what are you doing, dude? Why was that the call? Why was that the situation that you put your team in? So I hear the frustration, but we are worlds away from a conversation about whether or not this job is his. Fair?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I'm starting to wonder because, like, again, to go back to the example of Schottenheimer and Turner, those guys got into the playoffs. They won some wild card games. I think they even won a couple of divisional round and got to the AFC Championship game, but they just couldn't get anything past that. And those guys still got moved on from. And I know the Chargers aren't nearly the organization that the Packers are, but I think there is a certain point where every leadership group and fan base gets to where, okay, great, you're getting us into the playoffs, but if you're not doing anything past that, maybe you're just not the guy that can resonate with the team to get them to that final spot.
So I heard Evan Cohen on Sportsmanlike yesterday say something to the line of, could Matt LaFleur be Buck Showalter, right? Buck Showalter, of course, the longtime MLB manager, was the manager in the 90s of the Yankees. When he left, World Series. He was the manager of the Diamondbacks late 90s. When he left, they won a World Series. He was the manager of the Rangers. When he left, they won a World Series. And he was with the Mets up until last year was his first year, not the manager of the Mets, and we saw where they got. So I don't think LaFleur's that guy, right? Like, I think I still believe in Matt LaFleur to be the guy that gets them over the hump. And maybe others don't. Maybe others are losing faith in that. But this feels like the type of game where people are going to pick against the Packers. People are going to pick the Eagles to win. And look, on paper, I would agree. They are the better team. But this could be a prove-it game for LaFleur. If he goes to Philly and wins, and not even convincingly, Hunter, let's say they win 21-17 on Sunday. It would be great if the Packers held the Eagles to 17 points. But I'm just throwing out a random score, right? Let's say they win 21-17. I think on Monday you're going to go, wow, I'm impressed with what Matt LaFleur did yesterday. He back up against the wall, he found a way to win. And I think that completely changes the tune on him, because that would be something we've talked about all year as a signature win for the Packers. They don't have one. I mean, let's just be honest with one another, right? Like, the Packers' best win this season is what? The Texans?
Yeah, Texans.
And look, the Texans are obviously a playoff team, but they play in the worst division in football. They have a home game Saturday at 3:30. But are the Texans really that good? Like, I think the Chargers are going to win on Sunday.
Yeah, they probably will. And, like, I get it that, like, if it's a 21-17 win, yes, we're coming in Monday saying, hey, that was an impressive job by Matt LaFleur. Like, that was a great job. But then you're still in the same spot they were last year. You still haven't gone any further than you could go when you had a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, there's just, I think, again, a certain level of how many times do we have to watch the same thing play out if hypothetically they don't at least get to the, I think with this team, the NFC Championship game. Like, I'm not trying to make this seem like I'm trying to hate on the team or trying to stir the pot by saying, oh, maybe you got to think about Matt LaFleur going. I'm just like, I think there's a lot of parallels to other coaches who have been in this type of a spot. And even though they're getting to the playoffs and they'll win a game or two in the playoffs, teams still move on from them because I just think teams get impatient at times.
Yeah, but are we too impatient territory with Green Bay yet? Because this team is still so young and inexperienced, right? Think about the most experience they have on this roster. Who's the guy? I don't know, right? Is it Kenny Clark? Kenny Clark, the guy with the most experience on this team? So it's still, you still got a ways to go. But you know what? Listening to you say that, I just kept thinking back to 2020. And what a missed opportunity that was in that NFC Championship game against Tampa, who ultimately went on to win the Super Bowl. If LaFleur wins that game, man, are we talking about this guy way differently than we have this year, right? Okay, he's been there. He's won the big game. He's gotten over the hump. Now, I also think history would have changed a lot, right? Like they're probably addressing the draft a little bit differently in 2021. I mean, so yeah, hindsight being what it is, that 2020 NFC Championship would have been big. Would have been big. A lot of conversation rolling in. Love seeing it happen on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube chats. See Neil, Nevaeh going back and forth. Neil says, it just comes down to whether or not Jalen Hurts is decent or not. Packers need to sell out and stop the run. Make Jalen Hurts beat you. That's the only path to victory. I think that's a good take, right? You got to contain Saquon. And look, the Packers have done a nice job against the rush this year. They obviously allowed early on in the season 100-yard games from Saquon and Jonathan Taylor. I think there was another one early at some point in October. But the run really hasn't destroyed the Packers this year. They've been much better in rush defense than they have been in past years. And I feel like in past years it was both decent and good running backs killed you. It feels like this year only really good running backs are hurting the Packers. Could Saquon go for a buck on Sunday? Yeah, absolutely. He's the best of the best. He is the best running back in the league. But the Packers have been better in rush defense this year. So that's actually an encouraging sign when you're facing a guy like Saquon Barkley coming up on Sunday. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do what they did to Christian McCaffrey in November when he was coming off of that injury, which they just made him a non-factor. That's probably not going to be the case on Sunday. But I do trust Jeff Hafley to scheme something up to slow down Saquon. And if they make Jalen Hurts beat you, right? If that is their game plan going in, it is the right approach. So good point by Neil.
I don't
Joseph
agree
says,
at all.
I just don't have much faith in stopping Saquon. Go ahead. Agree with what?
With the idea of like, yeah, that's your route to go. Is it's not just Jalen Hurts beating you. It's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert beating you. Those are all two of the better receivers in the NFL and one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I've seen Dallas Goedert beat up on the Cowboys enough to know like that group of weapons is so good. So it isn't just a Jalen Hurts beating you. It's Jalen Hurts has to throw to guys who can catch just about everything thrown to them. That's why I'm like, I think with the secondary the Packers have, they've got to sit back in more coverage. Yeah, Saquon might run against you a little bit. It might get a little iffy. You may not have as many possessions as you want to have in the game because of how much these teams are going to run. But you can't get beat deep against these guys because if you do, then everything else gets open. So I think you're going to see a lot of 2 and even 3 deep from the Packers defense to try and keep things in front of them. It's going to get frustrating. You're going to see a lot of tweets of, this just looks like Joe Barry's defense. Nothing's changed. Yeah, it probably won't, but that's probably your better route because I'd rather give up a drive with 6, 8-yard runs from Saquon Barkley than an 80-yard bomb to Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that box score from week 1, and again, I don't put a ton of stock into week 1, right? I kind of still view that as like the official preseason game because a lot of starters in the NFL, and both of these teams were part of that in the preseason, don't play a ton, right? So this is the opportunity, live bullets, knock the rust off, get yourself situated for the regular season. High-scoring game, right? It was 34-29 was the final in that one. But that Eagles defense was not cooking at the degree it is now here in early January. Saquon Barkley, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground on 24 carries. It's an average of about 4.5 yards. Receiving-wise, A.J. Brown had 5 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown, including a 67-yarder. Right? I mean, those were the 2 guys that, I don't want to say beat you, because you had an opportunity to win that game, but they made that game really, really tough to win. And ultimately, you didn't. Saquon and A.J. Brown are 2 of the best at their position in the league. Saquon is the best in the league at his position. A.J. Brown is probably top 5 in the league at his position. So they've got some dogs at offense. I'm not doubting that. I just worry that if you let Saquon control this game, Hunter, it's over. I mean, it's just going to chew too much clock, and the guy is just phenomenal. So you got to, but yeah, you're right. You got to find a way to slow him down. You got to find a way to slow A.J. Brown down without Jair Alexander on the field. You got to find a way to take away a guy like Dallas Goedert, who you bring up. Now, that said, Quay Walker's going to return on Sunday, and that's a big guy to get back in the middle of the field. Maybe if he's playing this past Sunday. Something changes on that final offensive play for Chicago that changes the outcome of that game. But there's a lot of matchups in this game that worry you as a Packers fan, and rightfully so. This is a really good football team you're going to play. You're playing at a tough spot in Philly, and you're playing a good football team. So I'm incredibly intrigued for what Sunday brings. And Devontae Smith, by the way, no bad game for him in week 1, 7 catches, 84 yards. So he did a lot. What's your thought? Biggest advantage for the Green Bay Packers? Let us know. ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube. What is the Packers' biggest advantage going in Sunday into Philadelphia? Just reading, catching up on some of the comments. Neil says, I think Jordan Love has a slight advantage over Jalen Hurts. Now, it will be interesting. Nevaeh says, Evan Williams back. Yeah, that one I don't know. We'll have the official injury designation that will come out. But when Jason Wilde, our friend, and you can check out Weekly Wilde, which will come out tomorrow around this time on the Mr. Relevant podcast feed, ESPN Milwaukee on YouTube, I'll ask him about this tomorrow. But he asked Matt LaFleur earlier in the week about Evan Williams, and he was very noncommittal. He said, I got to see these guys practice, very much coach speak. But he didn't sound very confident on Evan Williams' status entering this game. So we will see. I'm really intrigued to see what that is. Hey, just a real quick note from Green Bay. This coming out from Tom Silverstein just moments ago from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel says Packers quarterback with the elbow injury is taking part in warm-ups, but the team is making sure media does not see whether he can throw by closing practice after the team stretch. Usually the media gets to see individual drills. That from Tom Silverstein. So the Packers closing practice to the media a bit earlier than they typically do. And Spoon drawing the comparison to the Packers, or excuse me, to Jordan Love here. They don't want to see if it's as if he can throw. Whether he can throw by closing practice after team stress. Very intrigued by that. John says, biggest advantage, we have nothing to lose, we're the underdogs. Neil says, special teams might be an advantage. Neil, apparently a Philly fan, according to Nevaeh. Neil is a knowledgeable Philly fan. What's up, Neil? Thanks for hanging out with us and giving us some Philly insight. This whole Jordan Love thing's interesting to me. I mean, obviously that elbow injury in the ulnar nerve we learned from our buddy Josh DiMaggio earlier in the week. The ulnar nerve is what Jordan Love injured, strangely enough. So, I mean, we're learning about biology altogether with the ulnar nerve. But what day is it today? Wednesday? It's Wednesday, right, Hunter?
Yeah.
I got my week all screwed up. Okay.
Yep, it's Wednesday.
So this is the first official practice of the week, and we don't really know what Jordan Love's status is. He's going to play. I think we can all agree with that. He's going to play. But I don't know, man.
I have some weird level of insight into the ulnar nerve.
Okay. Well, where is this going? I have no idea where this is headed.
Well, so my dad, he damaged his falling on some ice.
Okay.
And then the issue was after that happened was like he could hold something, but he couldn't fully tell that he was holding it. Because you start to lose like that feeling in your hand from it. So if Jordan Love's dealing with the same thing, it might be an issue of he can see I have the football, but like his hand isn't telling him I've got the football. So obviously that would make things a little difficult to throw if that's where this is going with it. Obviously I don't know 100% on it, but that's where I'm wondering if that's the issue here for him this week is he had a really bad hit on that funny bone, they call it then, and then that's what he could be dealing with. And then it's just one of those he's I just can't tell. I don't know, man.
I really hope it's not lingering to that degree. I'll tell you that much, man. I mean, if we are still at a point here on Wednesday where he's not sure he's holding a football, that's scary. That's scary. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I didn't mean to freak you out then as a fan here. I'm just
yeah,
that's just
certainly not ideal. Well, hold on, real quick, Hunter. Now that the door's closed, I want to pull on Josh DiMaggio because I was freaking out because there was just 2 police officers in by Josh DiMaggio.
That.
I imagine that. I imagine they are appearing on 620 WTMJ. Joshy, can you hear me right now? Are you listening to me? I didn't do anything illegal, did I? What was with the cops in there with you? What's going on right now?
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear you there.
Okay. I asked what was with the police officers in there talking to you. I didn't do anything illegal, right? They're not here to arrest me, correct?
No, I was just astounded as you, along with the other people who are on. I've got a meeting going on here to my right of our team. And one of our teammates, Eric, walks in and says, "Hey, I've got some cops here." And I said, "You do?" It appears I think they did something over on WTMJ with the news related, and he was just giving them a tour. But yes, as I was on the team meeting to my right here, I've got my laptop up and my camera is on, and 2 cops just walked into frame and were standing behind me, and I received about 3 different text messages. So I thought I was arrested. I didn't know why I was being arrested. But
Okay. Yeah, so I was just trying to power through. I was just continuing to do the show, right? Talk all their nerve. I was talking about the all their nerve just because I didn't really know what to do. I was just staring at 2, by the way, intimidating looking police officers who were built like brick bleep houses with great beards each of them had. I was incredibly nervous right there. So, thank you for making me feel a little bit better. But I could not go any further without acknowledging that. I didn't feel comfortable acknowledging it while they were in the room because then, it gets a little sticky and then they think I'm doing something illegal because I'm like, nervous cops. So anyway, wow. Okay.
I'm pretty sure young Will just walked in and said, "What's up, chump?" too.
He called you a chump?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bears won 1 game in the past 12.
What game?
Now I'm a chump.
Wow. Dude, he's found, part-time Will has found this absurd level of confidence in the last 72 hours, and I'm not really sure where it came from. I said to him the other day, Joshy, I think it was yesterday, I said, "Hey, man, I haven't seen you. Go ahead, talk your trash." And he goes, "I'm not going to talk my trash." But then I remembered Monday's show. I didn't acknowledge it on the show, but it happened during the show. Part-time Will was in the comment section of our show saying, #Will was right. Because when you were out on Friday, I had Will on for a little bit, and he was telling me, sneaky bears. And, he calls you a chump.
Yeah, I didn't have I almost predicted a loss in that one when we get our email from social media genius Maddie.
Yeah.
But I thought that was too far. I thought I went too far. I have the green and gold glasses. And now I haven't seen this guy since like 2 weeks now, and now I'm a chump.
Wow. He's taking after you, though, is the issue. Because that's how you talk to me every morning.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll walk in, you go, "What's up, bozo?"
It is a little taste of my own medicine, perhaps.
All right, good
You're
stuff.
like Frankenstein. You created the monster.
He did. Yeah.
He's doing pretty well, so pat on the back to me.
He's shaking his head that you created the monster, by the way. So that's good. So we've gone from cops to being called chumps in the matter of 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Will, did you do anything illegal? Just with the shake of the head. I don't know if your mic's on. I don't know if Josh is going to get that hooked up. But did you do anything illegal? Because there was just 2 cops in here, and I'm very distracted. MPD was in the building, and I got a little nervous. So I don't know if your mic works, but you didn't do anything illegal,
I don't know where
did
to
you?
put that mic.
Well, there's a button on one of them that says intern, and you can click that. I think it's mic 3.
You literally label it intern?
Yeah, it's typically the intern mic, and it's for now former intern Will. All right, Will, anything illegal you need to admit to?
No, but it's actually funny you say that because when I saw them, my first thought was, what did Josh do? I was going to come in here and ask him because I saw we were just on a call, a Teams call.
He was just telling us this.
We were looking at the screen on the big screen in the meeting room, and you just see 2 cops walk in and start talking to Josh. I'm like, what did Josh do wrong?
I received a variety of texts. Understandable. I don't know if that says anything about me that I seem likely to end up in a situation where I have to talk to police, but...
The fun part about this job, man, is you never know what's going to happen in this building. That was not on my bingo card.
No.
All right. I'm glad we're all still here, though. Good to have Will. Good to have Joshy. Good to have Hunter.
Another day free.
Another day. Yeah. Good for you. Hopefully several more of those ahead, Joshy. Hopefully. All right, we got a couple things to clean up on. We did not do stock up, stock down on Monday, so rather I want to do that today. But I want to do a season-long stock up, stock down. I'm only going to give you a few names, but I would love to hear you on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube channel. I want to hear from Joshy on this as well. On season-long stock up, stock down. So typically we do this every week after Packers games. We take a look at just the one game and say, hey, this stock is rising, this stock is falling, but it's just an indication of one game. That doesn't mean it's the overarching theme for the season. We are going to do that today, though. I want to take the 17 games the Packers played, finished with an 11-6 record, and highlight a few guys whose stock has risen entering the postseason, and look at a few guys whose stock has fallen entering the postseason and the wild card game Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with stock up, and the biggest stock up this season goes to one of the free agent acquisitions. That would be, of course, Josh Jacobs, the running back, who has been an absolute beast for this team. 15 rushing touchdowns on the season, 1,329 yards on the ground this season for Josh Jacobs. We thought it was an interesting addition in the offseason when the Packers decided to move on from Aaron Jones and bring in Josh Jacobs. Worked out pretty darn well for them, didn't it? He has been the focal point of this offense. He has been the biggest part of this offense and hopefully continues to be going through this season. So Josh Jacobs, stock up to the running back, Josh Jacobs. Let's go to stock down. Hey, man, despite a Pro Bowl selection for this guy, underwhelming season, big time. He's picked it up here towards the end of the year, and hopefully that continues into the postseason. But overall, when you make this adjustment in this defense, it seemed like nobody was going to benefit more from it than Rashawn Gary by going to the 4-3. And for the most part, hasn't really benefited to it. Stock down to Rashawn Gary. Finishes the season with 7.5 sacks, which was the most on the team. And that's not a lot of sacks. You know, when you look at the NFL, and guys that are game wreckers, guys that are going to be looked at for Pro Bowls typically, and Rashawn Gary was. But when you look at guys who are looked at for depoys and game wreckers and guys that are going to be viewed as the best in the league, he's not even close to in that category, right? Double-digit sacks is typically when you're starting to become part of that conversation. Trey Hendrickson for the Cincinnati Bengals, he led the league, finished with 17.5 sacks. Myles Garrett, 14 sacks. Nick Bonito for Denver, who has been a huge surprise this year, 13.5 sacks. Minnesota, Van Ginkel, 11.5. Jonathan Greenard, 12 sacks. Right? Minnesota had two guys in that category. Green Bay is none. And Rashawn Gary was supposed to be that guy. He just didn't deliver throughout the season, finished with 7.5. Stock down to a guy that's getting paid to be a game wrecker, but isn't being a game wrecker in Rashawn Gary. You got any faith he can make a little bit of an impact on Sunday? Because I don't know. I'm worried about him. Let's go back to stock up. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Second round pick in this year's draft. Has maybe proven he could be and will be the best linebacker on this Packers team. That would, of course, be Edgerrin Cooper. 87 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, which led the team for him. He had a great rookie season, and you know he was limited snaps, right? Like there were games. He won 2 Defensive Player of the Weeks in the NFC this year by playing less than 70% of the snaps in each of those games. The guy walks into that defensive backfield or midfield, I guess we could call it, the linebacker grouping. That's a guy who has the potential to be a game wrecker. I mean, what he did in his rookie year. And it's not over yet, but what he did in the regular season of his rookie year, super, super, super impressive. This guy has the potential to be a game wrecker. For Joshy, Edgerrin Cooper falls into the my guy category.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what he has done this year can only make you ecstatic for what's to come in his future.
I think if the Packers want to win this weekend, Edgerrin Cooper needs to have another one of those games of his life. Now, the games of his life, there's really only 2 where he played exceptionally well, and one player, like a defensive player of the week. But I think he needs to have a third because run stopping and keeping Jalen Hurts kind of where he is going to be bigly important.
Bigly important?
Mm-hmm.
Sticking to it?
Yeah, you've never heard people use bigly?
Is bigly a word?
I think it's actually a Trump quote that kind of just snuck into your brain. One of them, people are saying, one of those where you just kind of say it because it's funny.
Gotcha. Hey, man, go take a dip in the Gulf of America, would you? Let's go to stock down. Staying on the defense. Kenny Clark. Where did he go? I referenced him early as the most experienced dude. And don't get me wrong, I like Kenny. He's a really good defensive tackle. He just, and for the improvement that this defense has made in terms of the run defense, right? I mentioned earlier, it's been better this year. If you watched all 17 games, you noticed an improvement in the run defense. The running backs didn't completely kill you this year, right? Saquon had a 100-yard game, sure. Jonathan Taylor had a 100-yard game, sure. I think Joe Mixon had a pretty good game against the Packers, if I'm not mistaken. But nobody else did for the Texans. This run defense has been better. But Kenny just hasn't been the pest, the menace the disruptor, I think, is probably the best word to use for him, that we've grown used to. He signed that third contract, which is very rare in Green Bay, and yeah, not his best year. Kenny Clark, wildly underwhelming this year.
I'd say it was his worst year.
Oh, yeah, probably. At least worse since his rookie year, but I feel like he was even better as a rookie back in, what year was that, 2018, 2017? What was his rookie year? He's been around forever. Might have been earlier than that.
This is like his 9th year, so.
2016 probably then?
Yeah.
Because Ted was still the GM, so it would have been at the latest 2017, but I think it was 2016 draft. Kenny Clark was a first-round pick. Yeah, it's been one of his worst years, unfortunately. Is what it is. Let's go back to Stock Up. We'll stay back on the offense. Tucker Kraft was an improvement this year, man. And we thought one of these tight ends, and obviously you can't predict the injury that came to Musgrave that kept him out for a majority of the season. But Tucker Kraft made a big jump this year, right? The second on the team in yards, over 700 receiving yards for him. And he led the team in receiving touchdowns this year. 7 touchdowns. Now, we'll get to Stock Down in a minute and why the fact that was second and number one in terms of receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, why that is a disappointment. But it is an exceptional improvement to that tight end position that's been primarily underwhelming since the departure of Jermichael Finley in the early 2010s. You haven't really had a dog in that position. You finally do with Tucker Kraft. You might even have a second with Luke Musgrave. Like, that guy hasn't played a ton this year, so we'll see probably entering next year what Musgrave is capable of. But Tucker Kraft was awesome this year. He became a security blanket of sorts for Jordan Love. He poses a threat in the middle of the field. He's a good blocker, too. So Tucker Kraft, big stock up to him after year number 2 for the tight end. Joshy, any thoughts on T. Kraft? And did you see, by the way, he got his big-ass boxes of mac and cheese?
I did. His yak and cheese.
Yak and cheese, excuse me, yes.
I think he is one of the players to be most excited about. The really only thing I'm disappointed about is the lack of usage of him by the Packers coaching staff. Like, they need more things to feature Tucker Kraft, and we've seen a little bit more of it. His targets have certainly risen a little bit, but more of those screens, more of those getting him in space, because as the yak and cheese said, that guy runs through your face, and he gets extra yards after the catch.
If we were to do a hypothetical draft of the guys on the Green Bay Packers you want on your team in a bar fight, would he be the first overall pick?
Ooh, I don't know. Elton Jenkins got a mean streak.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, that guy's an mother bleeper in the best way.
Yeah, Javon Bullard might get drafted there. Keyshawn Nixon.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still taking Rashawn Gary. He's a very large man that moves very fast and very strong. He might not be good at sacking the quarterback, but you're going to win most fights with him on your side.
Yeah, 36th in the league with 7.5.
Yeah, I was going to say, basically just go along the O-line or the D-line. Those guys should all be getting taken first.
Grab the big MFers. What's our boy DJ Burns up to these days, Hunter?
I don't know. I'll look him
somewhere?
up. I don't know. Probably somewhere in Europe or something.
That is where the term big MFer began, was with North Carolina State Center DJ Burns, basketball center DJ Burns. He was a big MFer. Rashawn Gary, also a big MFer. Just wish he did more with the fact that he's a big MFer. All right, let's go back to Stock Down. A couple more for you before we get the honorable mentions. This one might be viewed a little controversial. I've got Jordan Love in Stock Down. And this is probably a problem of my own, because of expectations, right? What are the expectations when in the offseason you sign a $55 million per year contract extension? The expectation is you are one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, he wasn't horrible. He wasn't bad by any means. He's certainly cleaned up the thing that was his biggest problem in the first half of the season, which was the interceptions and some of the risks he was taking. Those have been cleaned up. But I don't know that you can look at the Packers schedule and say Jordan Love won you that game. You know, when you think of Aaron Rodgers' tenure as a Packer, you were good for like 6 games a year where it was like, yep, Aaron Rodgers won you that game. I don't know that there was a Jordan Love game this year. And maybe Sunday will be that game in Philadelphia. But in terms of expectation, Jordan Love wasn't really in the MVP conversation. I understand he dealt with some injuries early on and throughout the year, right? The knee injury, the groin injury, now the elbow injury, entering this wild card round. But for expectation's sake, I think overall season wide, stock is a little bit down, not massively down, but it's a little bit down on Jordan Love. Joshy, any objections?
It's hard to argue, especially after getting paid the way he did. The one thing I'll say is, you haven't won games because of Jordan Love. I think there was a point early in the season when Jordan Love was throwing seemingly an interception or two every single game where the Packers were avoiding putting too much on Jordan Love's plate. But I think that's all disappeared at this point. And the reason they run so much and their run-pass balance is like one of the highest in the leagues is simply because they're that much better at running the ball than almost every other team they face and every other defense they face. Like,
True.
To some extent, if Aaron Rodgers had this type of running game, you would still lean into it. I mean, the Jets tried to, it just didn't work. They weren't as good at run blocking. And Matt LaFleur, in terms of run scheming, is one of the best in the league. So I understand why people are down on him. I think the injuries have played a large factor. I also think the talent around him has done him no help, mainly at that wide receiver position. And I think that would be looked differently if there was one of those guys emerged as like a full-fledged stud.
A full-fledged stud.
Mm-hmm.
It's you, brother.
Tell me about it. The cops are trying to break down the door to get to me.
Last one for me. Let's go back to stock up. How about the offensive line? Debatably the best position group for this Packers team all year. 16 of the 17 games saw these same 5 starters on that offensive line, which of course allowed Josh Jacobs to do what he did so well this season. Also, Jordan Love did not take sacks this year. He took 3, I think it was, against Minnesota, but pretty clean overall.
I believe 22 sacks all season is the second best number in the league.
Of eligible quarterbacks, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it is an absurd number. Don't get me wrong. Jordan Love can be elusive. He's good at extending plays. He's good at going off schedule a little bit, off script. But the offensive line deserves a ton of credit. I mean, the continuity amongst that group is a huge part of this, right? No injuries, serious injuries. Josh Meyer missed 1 game, and that was it. The other 4 did not miss any time. So the health, number one, is a huge part of this. The continuity, the chemistry, to be able to trot the same 5 out there week after week after week after week is a huge part of this. But yeah, it was a really impressive year for this offensive line. It's a big stock up to the O-line. And look, this is a team that always develops linemen. And obviously with some of the penalties and some of the times in which they hadn't happened, sure, that falls on the offensive line. But this was a really good group this year. So stock up to the O-line.
I found it interesting. I just saw an article earlier this morning about how 3 of those guys on the offensive line are now eligible for contract extensions because they were drafted in 2022.
Yeah, it'd be Walker, Ryan, and Tom. That's right.
And all starters and all guys I don't think you can really part ways with, which is impressive to get that all in one singular year of the draft. Like, they've tried to make Sean Ryan not the guy at right guard.
And it just hasn't worked. He's been the guy.
Right. And he's played extremely well. Rasheed Walker, like, other than the penalties, are we really looking at Rasheed Walker and being like, wow, he blew that, or he's totally outmatched there on Love's blind side?
Right. Other than the penalties, no.
Right. And I can live with the penalties. You want them to go down, but I think that's an experience thing. Playing more and more and getting more comfortable as you keep playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. So
Zach Tom, I mean, he's all pro level.
Yeah, he's the number one you got to lock up.
If there wasn't so many good young tackles, he would be talked about as one of the best in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go to stock down. Position group again. Wide receivers. The wide receiver group, stock down. We talked all offseason. Could it be their superpower? The fact they don't really have a number one. They've got so many guys that can become that number one or be that number one at any given moment. Nobody elevated. Where the hell did Jaden Reed go? Christian Watson, and not his fault, but Christian Watson dealing with injuries all year, and obviously his season ended on Sunday against the Bears, tearing that ACL. Romeo Doubs has had some good moments, but inconsistent. Dontavian Wicks led the league in drops. You don't have a number one, and I think something that became completely evident in November and into December, now into January, is the Packers desperately need a number one receiver. Maybe not desperately, but they need one. And we kind of thought somebody would evolve and somebody would turn into that. It hasn't happened. So yeah, little Little irritated. Now, could Sunday be the day that Jaden Reed comes back to life and shocks us with a 2-touchdown game? And Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton, who's going to step in for the injured Christian Watson, being their biggest speedster on the roster now. Yeah, I mean, sure. Could they make some good things happen on this postseason run? Absolutely. But throughout the regular season, this was a group that disappointed and fell short of expectations. Stock down to the entire wide receiver group is my last one for stock up, stock down.
Can we now summarily dismiss the idea that not having a number one is actually an advantage, like the Packers tried to tell us all offseason?
I think we kind of dismissed it to begin with, Joshy.
I don't know. Right? Some people were eating the trash.
I may have talked myself into saying, yeah, that's their superpower.
Yeah, I believe you said exactly those words, which would lead me to believe you weren't dismissing it.
No, it was more of a Matt LaFleurism. No, I think it's better to have a true number one because all these guys could be great number twos and number threes. But if you had a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, which I know are the best of the best, but if you had a Garrett Wilson or a Amon-Ra St. Brown, a CD Lamb type guy, Devontae Adams used to be that, I think 11-6 isn't your record, to be real honest with you.
I still think there's 2 or 3 guys you could make an argument to. They could still be like a 1B type of guy, whereas they would be like a high-end number 2, which I think is good enough. I just think you need a guy you can trust and rely on. And I mean, hell, Alan Lazard did it at times for a while.
That's a good point.
Like, it's just you need a level of consistency from them. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the wide receiver room by any means yet. It's just somebody has to be the guy who's demanding the ball on 3rd down, 4th down, and in the red zone. And right now, they tried to make Romeo Doubs that guy. Not that guy.
Not that guy.
They tried to make Jaden Reed that guy. Didn't show he was that guy.
Probably not that guy.
Large parts of the season. But it's second year for these guys. A lot. This happens a lot in the NFL.
Yeah. There's still plenty of time.
Yeah. Second year struggles are like, it's a saying. It's a saying in the NFL because it does happen. So I think both Wicks and Reed have a potential to really elevate their game way above what we saw this year.
Agreed. But is that a next year thing or is that a next 3 weeks thing?
And also, in the offseason, I'm going to be making plans in case they do. Because you gotta protect your quarterback and your investment in your offense. So, whereas I would have never thought that was a place they were looking come the 2025 offseason, I do think there will be either free agency or draft capital spent there.
I'm going to say this quietly, just between me and you for a moment, okay? Would you spend money on T. Higgins?
Yeah, duh.
Okay. How much?
I also don't think
Why are
T.
you
Higgins
saying that
is-
quietly?
He's going to be worth a lot of
dude's
money.
legit.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's gonna
of
be
course
worth
you
a
get
lot
it.
of money.
Yeah, and he's
For a guy
worth
who's
it.
not a proven number, but he's not a proven number one. Could he be that? Yes. Don't get me wrong.
The thing is, he's played pretty well when they haven't had Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's different the way they run their offense there and just sort of. But he is the level of talent that I think you'd be more than fine with.
Are they going to let him walk out the building in Cincinnati?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But if they do, hope Goody.
I mean, that's going to be
knocking.
like $27 million a year for a guy like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Packers have like 60, don't they?
They do. Yeah, and they could have more with restructures.
Yeah.
And
This is quiche.
could add an extra $6 million by saying goodbye to Jair Alexander.
So it's cold hard quiche.
Now that doesn't count rookie deals. I'm not acknowledging that.
As you acknowledge it.
Got him.
All right. Let's go to one word. Each and every Wednesday, we play One Word Wednesday. Sometimes it's topics, sometimes it's thoughts, sometimes it's chaos, sometimes it's teams. Today, we are going to do one word for each of the 14 NFL playoff teams. We're down from 32 to 14 left in the NFL as we get ready for Wild Card Weekend. It is time now for One Word Wednesday. Hunter, take it away.
We'll start off in the AFC. And you can't use the word khakis, but it's the LA Chargers.
Well, I wrote the word khakis, so this is problematic. Turnaround would be my word for the Chargers. The Harbaugh hire was the right one, very clearly. So if it can't be khakis, it will be turnaround.
Okay, let's go with who they're playing. The Houston Texans.
Underwhelming is my word for Houston. A team that obviously beat expectations a year ago with both of their rookies leading the charge on each side of the ball and winning the respective awards for Rookie of the Year. Still wins their division, but their division is hot trash, hot garbage. Underwhelming, my word for the Texans.
We're going to just stay in the AFC and go with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Nix is my word. Typically, I've said quarterback. Nix is my word. Bo Nix has proven he has the opportunity to be a superstar in this league. Bo Nix. Nix, my word for the Denver Broncos.
You poo-pooed me earlier in the year when I said that he will be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. You were like, it's 100% Jaden Daniels.
Hey, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. You were right. I was wrong.
I know. I needed that acknowledgement. Pittsburgh Steelers.
Goodbye. It's over. Fun story. They are playing bad football right now, and they're going to Baltimore. No shot they win.
Let's go with Baltimore. The Ravens.
I wrote the word run, but that really hasn't been their entire MO this year. Lamar Jackson threw 41 touchdowns, but run would be my word. That 1-2 punch with Lamar and Derrick Henry might be unbeatable this postseason. Intrigued to see what Baltimore does in the playoffs.
I think the one team that can beat them with their defense, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Annoying. They're really good again, and they might win a third straight Super Bowl. My word for the Kansas City Chiefs is annoying.
Yeah, I won't, my wife is a big Swiftie, so she's all in on the Chiefs. But yeah, I'm even getting a little annoyed. Like, just the fact that they keep winning games. It's stupid. And finally in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills.
It's an acronym. It is MVP. Josh Allen will win the MVP. And look, they're really good too. It's a 3-horse race, I think, in each conference. Bills, Ravens, Chiefs is my view in the AFC. The Bills are certainly part of it. They should win pretty easily, I would guess, on Sunday, despite the good story that the Denver Broncos are.
Moving over to the NFC, the Washington Commanders.
Points, man. That offense can score points with anybody. So points, my word, for the Commanders. Nice revitalization to the career of Cliff Kingsbury, their offensive coordinator.
In the NFC West, the LA Rams.
Sneaky. It's a team that's getting healthy at the right time. They are a very well-coached team, obviously, by Sean McVay. I think they are a sneaky contender in the NFC.
I thought we banned that word.
I don't think we did.
Josh, I need a ruling. Did you ban sneaky?
I think I did.
Shoot. Hey, Will, what's a synonym for sneaky? You got anything for me?
Frisky.
Can't use that either.
Nope.
And two.
That's also bad.
I think I was the one that banned Frisky too.
Oh wow, back in your intern days, huh?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I love Frisky.
I do too.
Can I
Will,
unban it?
I guess that's your ruling, right?
I
Not
hereby
allowed.
unban it.
No.
Okay, frisky for the Washington Commanders.
This is stupid. And we were talking about LA, but Tampa Bay.
Wait, what did I say? Tampa Bay?
No, we were talking about LA, and that's where you then tried to use Frisky, but then you said the Commanders. So now we're on to Tampa Bay.
Excuse me. Yes, the Rams. Yes, we're on to Tampa Bay. My word for the Bucks is bonkers. This matchup between them and the Commanders is actually, I'm going to use a banned word here, one of the sexiest matchups of the weekend for me. I think that game is going to be really good between the Commanders and the Bucks. So bonkers, my word for the Bucks. Mike Evans is unbelievable. Look, I know they probably shouldn't have gotten the 1,000-yard streak, but 11 years in a row with 1,000 yards while missing some games this season, absolutely nuts. Bonkers, my word for Tampa.
The Detroit Lions.
Overcoming. Obviously, what they have gone through adversity-wise, right? The injuries, so many of them, and this team is still the best in the league. Overcoming, my word, but Josh is laughing at me.
Why wouldn't you just say adversity?
I actually did write that initially. I just thought overcoming was more fitting.
Adversity is much more to the point.
Plus, anyone that hears that, like, they understand where you're going right away. Like, I
really don't appreciate the judgment in this segment.
No, I just feel like going forward on
problem.
this segment, I might have to get you the list sooner, and then I'm going to have to, like, edit this for you. So you
I
don't
knew
sound
the
like
list. We were doing the 14 playoff teams. I knew the list.
Then you should have sent me your words, and we could have edited
it.
Yeah, we need somebody to do this, because this is getting a little pathetic. Minnesota Vikings.
Surprise! Biggest surprise of the NFL this year, bar none. The Minnesota Vikings. Surprise.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Nasty. They're a really good football team, man. Sunday's going to be an interesting test for Green Bay. Nasty, my word.
And finally, the Green Bay Packers.
I wrote crisis.
Jeez.
Losing to the Chicago Bears is bad, man. Having the locker room, I don't want to call it a revolt, but the discussion with Xavier McKinney, Rashawn Gary, etc., kind of the, hey, wake-up call moment. Heading into the playoffs, not the ideal time for that conversation.
We did this on Jen Given Chewy. It was a little thought experiment. If you flip-flop the Saints game with the Bears game, your entire feeling about the Packers switches. And it's two games against worthless teams that are going nowhere that tell you nothing about how good you are.
Losing to them tells you how good you are, which isn't as good as you thought you were.
But if it happened, what I'm saying is if you flipped the outcomes and when they happened, the only thing that changes is the time of year it happened at.
But then you have proof of bounce back after a loss.
Correct, right? And that's exactly where I was going to go, Hunter, is you got your get-right game ahead of the postseason.
What the hell does that mean?
Entering the postseason, losing 2 in a row does not make me feel very confident.
Did they not win after losing to the Lions?
No, they did. Obviously, they did it all year, up until the final 2 games of the season. They were 11-4. They finished 11-6. Their bounce-back opportunity is in Philadelphia, not necessarily the most heartwarming place to get a get-right game in.
I don't know what to tell you. Beat some of the teams in your division. Would be an issue.
I'm with you. I agree.
Crisis is crazy.
Of all the teams in the NFL playoffs,
if you look at Super Bowl odds,
the Packers are playing the worst football of all of the teams.
Vegas will tell you that this is not a team in crisis. They're not the worst. They don't have the worst odds. They aren't even the bottom 4 in odds, if I were actually to look at the numbers. So
no,
crisis
yeah,
seems a bit of a stretch, does it not?
If they lose huge on Sunday,
it means nothing.
Oh, come on.
You are going to be... The saying it means nothing if they lose on Sunday is ridiculous. That's way too far.
It's the playoffs. You lose, you're out. I don't care if you lose by 40 or 5. It's not going to change what I think about the team next year. Well, you lost by 40 to the Eagles in the playoffs. This team's doomed. No.
But what if they lose in the same way that they lost to San Francisco? Where it's like late Jordan Love turnover, makes a bad decision trying to make a play, and then he does it again in a big moment. You're feeling differently going into the season compared to if they lose by 3 touchdowns. You're a liar.
No.
I'm not. I'm just not.
That is not true at all. Back-to-back seasons of Jordan Love losing the game, you're feeling different.
Need a win.
How I feel.
Need a win on Sunday. And we can all just stop talking about this. And maybe it's not crisis. That might be a little strong, but I'm discouraged. That's for sure. Why'd we have to end on that note?
I think if football teams approached it, well, some do. Some of them might be the Cowboys or some of the worst teams in the league. If you judge any single outcome and make it big sweeping judgments on it, that's how you make bad decisions in football.
But I literally just asked you, Josh, if it would be the outcome of 2 games that I'm saying then. It would be back-to-back seasons in my hypothetical of doing the same thing. It isn't just one game.
Right, but does the regular season mean nothing?
I mean, once you're in the playoffs,
Well, yeah, of course. I understand that portion. But, there's growth. Teams get better. Growth isn't linear. Things happen.
Growth isn't linear.
I mean, Lamar Jackson has, one of the worst playoff passer ratings we've seen from somebody of his level. Is anybody being well, he's no good. There's no way they're going to make it. Or is probably can get over that hump.
Yeah.
But
Aaron Rodgers couldn't win comeback games until he started doing it late in his career.
But the conversation around Lamar Jackson has been now, great, let's see what he does in the postseason. They don't care. People don't care about what he's doing in the regular season. That's part of why Josh Allen will probably win MVP because, they've just gotten fatigued to what he does in the regular season. Because now it's, okay, what do you do in the postseason? Yeah, but I'm saying then Jordan Love goes out there and loses the game again late in the postseason. I think you have to start having that conversation then in this offseason, and you look at the team a little differently, and you start saying, okay, we got to see Jordan Love actually step up in a big game. as opposed to, okay, they got blown out like they were the 7 seed going up against the 2 seed. Like, yes, the result does matter.
Nah, that's just not how I operate. But I understand how you do, and I understand how many people do. It's just not how I view it. I don't make big general sweeping judgments like that. They're the youngest team in the league. Second youngest team ever to last year's team.
Last year's team.
There's a lot of factors here, and I know we want to point out the quarterback as the singular thing, but like sometimes guys make mistakes, and
it's true.
And it doesn't dictate what they're going to be throughout their career. I got 10 more years of Jordan Love.
Except when Tony Romo kept then making that mistake, and that did become his career.
Oh, come on. Tony Romo. Come on.
I'm just saying it
I
happens.
can't even hold a field goal.
I can't even hold a field goal. That was good.
Because the ball was
That
doctored.
good.
Seahawks cheated.
Yeah.
I didn't know that angle. That's a good spin zone.
Well, that was the Ice Bowl, too. Lombardi cheated. He had the heaters turned off after the Cowboys warmed up.
You turn your mic off.
Come on.
That is sacrilegious.
Come on.
He's a
you learn
cheater.
Something new every day. We learned something new today.
His legacy's
It's time
a
to interrupt
fraud.
the show as we always do. What we learned on Mr.
R.I.P.
Relevant. R.I.P. Vince Lombardi.
Lombardi Bart Starr.
Well, they're both dead.
Thanks. Breaking news. Hit the sounder.
R.I.P. to both of them. All right, what I learned is athletes are emotional. 2 stars in 2 different sports went in front of the media in the past week and said, yeah, I got to get out of here. And now all of a sudden, a week later, the reports are, they're probably both staying put. We'll start in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, following the Dolphins' season-ending loss to the Jets on Sunday, said, man, I think my time's up here. You know, I got to get out of here, essentially. I think I'm going to be out. Peace out. Puts a picture of his face on Antonio Brown leaving the Bucs game a couple of years ago, ironically also against the Jets, when he ran off the field, and saying, yeah, you know, I'm out of Miami. And now the Dolphins are saying, yeah, he hasn't requested a trade. He had a season-ending interview. He didn't request a trade. So probably just an emotional after-the-game thing from Tyreek Hill. Then in the NBA, Jimmy Butler having a press conference last week saying his happiness has gone off the field. What's in the water in Miami, man?
Well, I mean, it's Tyreek Hill.
But also Jimmy Butler. And now Jimmy Butler, essentially, it looks like no trade coming for him. And after his 7-game suspension, he'll be back on the court for the Miami Heat. So I think it's something to do with Miami more so than Tyreek Hill and Jimmy Butler.
You got to consider the sources of these two things. Both those guys aren't necessarily the most even-keeled, would you say?
No, I don't think I would.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I just want to acknowledge on the video stream, that is a photo of DJ Burns Jr. It looks like in a Memphis Grizzlies jersey.
No, I was going to get to that for my what I learned. DJ Burns, the big MFer, playing in South Korea for the Goyang Sono Sky Gunners, 2-time Korea League champions.
Cool name.
Yeah.
One more time on the name of the team.
Goyang Sono Sky Gunners. No idea if I actually said that correctly.
Is that or is that part of the name, or is that Sonos the speaker company?
No second S.
It's a good question. Okay,
Gotcha,
just Sono.
Gotcha.
Okay, got it.
I got something that I learned here quickly. Basically, the entire country will be under negative wind chill this weekend, except for the parts that are on fire in California. Negative 34 expected this weekend in Wisconsin.
Seriously?
And worse in some spots.
What day?
The weekend. Friday, Saturday.
The whole weekend?
Ugh.
Well, I'm going to see the matchup of a lifetime Saturday at UWM Panther Arena. Doug Gottlieb versus Bart Lundy.
Fraud.
Well, yeah.
Clearly.
Doug Gottlieb versus Bart Lundy on Saturday at 3 o'clock, and you're telling me it's going to be negative 30 outside?
You would need to pay me hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get me out of the house in that weather to watch. What place is Milwaukee in?
I think they're first.
Yeah.
A first and last place matchup?
Milwaukee's
You're not even
legit.
going to get a game.
Does college basketball
Yeah,
have
they're
a
good,
running
though.
clock? Because that game might have it.
Unfortunately, they don't. But yeah, Milwaukee actually in second place. They are 4-1, tied for second place in the Horizon League. Youngstown State 5-1. But yeah, GB 0-6.
Great program,
in Horizon League
Youngstown
play.
What's
State.
their overall record?
Oh, it's their who's
Green Bay's.
2-15.
Hey-o!
Milwaukee 11-5 on the year. Joshy, even better than hundreds of millions of dollars that I need to pay you. I got 2 extra tickets. You want to come?
I would rather sit in a solitary confinement cell for those 3 hours than go to watch Doug Gottlieb's basketball team lose.
Are you? What time is this game? Because are you missing NFL playoffs to watch this gross game?
I am. I will probably miss the first half.
You and Gottlieb frauds together.
That's why they get along.
The first half of Texans Chargers. Yeah.
Well, it was not 2 days ago. You're like, me and Jim, we're the NFL fans. And now you're going to watch the stinking Green Bay Phoenix?
I'll miss the first half.
You're more of a NFL fraud than you are an NBA fraud.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That will do it for us today. I don't know if I want either of these. Oh, I almost swore. I don't know if I want either of these guys back on Friday. Our buddy Steve Scafidi, the mayor, will join us Friday.
Wow, what a treat.
What a treat indeed. He will join us Friday to preview Packers-Eagles. You hear him on Green Bay Game Day. You also hear him on the Political Power Hour, 620 WTMJ. The former mayor of Oak Creek, Steve Scafidi, will join us in studio on Friday's Mr. Relevant to talk a little Packers-Eagles. Looking forward to talking to you then. We'll start with you at 12:30 Central, ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube. And, of course, available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand. We have our first show meeting of the new year tomorrow. Joshy, Hunter, myself, and some suits. How you guys think that's going to go? Pretty well?
I think I'm going to get an A+ grade, and that's all that matters.
I feel like I'll get a solid grade. I don't know about Strouf. This could turn into us just complaining about Strouf to management.
Can't wait. Talk to you Friday. Peace.